I am the mayor. I've been mayor of Urbon for 5 years now. This is my last year. Remember, I was just a boy here in the city.
Okay, great life story, but this class is about engineering.
Speaking of which, I'd like to introduce you to the Plasma Gasification Center, one of the greatest pieces of engineering in all of Urbon Faro. In fact, I even call it a great piece of architecture.
What about the Florence Cathedral? The Plaza Vecchio? The Cappella Medici?
All those are beautiful. All those are great and very beautiful pieces of art. But the Plasma Gasification Center is quite the miracle of modern engineering.
You see, many years ago, Urbon Faro had a trash problem. Landfills were spilling over, recycling plants couldn't handle everything coming in, and well, you can't just reuse everything. Engineers decided it was time for a new solution.
Plasma gasification takes almost any kind of waste, solid, liquid, wastewater, even plastic and metal. The waste enters the plant, and that's where the real magic begins.
All over the plant, there are tiny little arcs of metal with two electric appliances at both ends, cathodes and anodes. A noble gas, generally helium or argon, is pushed through the equipment and has electricity run through it, ionizing gas. The great energy gain creates plasma, the same material that makes up stars.
From there, the plasma enters containers full of gas and sewage, superheating them until they become synthetic gas, a term we engineers generally shorten to syngas. The syngas is clear and completely harmless to humans and the environment. It exits through a smokestack at the top of the building.
And once again, test group engineers here and in other countries to prove that the gas is completely harmless and does not contribute to global warming. Harms nothing.
Right, we know. Anyways, before exiting the building, the syngas is run through a tube in a boiler room, where the gas will cause water to boil and transform into steam, which will spin a turbine and generate power.
And just in case there's an emergency, a disaster, or a plant failure, Urbon Faro also has geothermal energy.
Urbon Faro just happens to sit on a fault line, where geothermal heat is abundant.
It's the Eurasian plate. Urbon Faro is in Italy, where Florence used to be, before the fire struck in 2027, 150 years ago.
Yes, Mayor Leska, they know about the fire.
Well, yeah, I'm just making sure.
Okay then, so anyway, our geothermal plants provide backup and emergency power for our city. It is also used in the areas where our plasma energy cannot reach.
Another byproduct of the plasma arc gasification process is the material civilians like to call superconcrete. It's actually a glass co-product called slag that the government uses to create a special type of concrete. That's where superconcrete comes in. This superconcrete can hold more weight and is sulfate resistant, causing it to corrode much slower than regular concrete.
And of course, that means the concrete isn't replaced as often. Bridges, sidewalks, buildings, all of them will last longer. And naturally, being replaced less often equals less taxes. You're welcome, Italy.
Anyways, class, today is the 150th anniversary of the fire that took Florence. As you know, the fire was caused by a series of arsons in the city. Today, our engineers worked very hard to prevent another fire, but from a different circumstance, plasma.
Let's be honest, if an explosion were to hit the plant, we'd all be toast, literally. That's why our engineers work extra hard finding ways to prevent disaster. As you know, the plasma is contained in metal. The metal containers plasma is held in is made of extremely thick tungsten metal. The tungsten being the metal with the highest melting point.
That basically means it's very, very unlikely that any plasma could ever escape, ever, even during an earthquake.
Yes, we know. Metal is thick and strong. The metal is thick and strong, and plasma is non-explosive. The plasma we use, by the way, is a technological plasma, the coldest and most stable plasma there is. A very small fraction of the gases are actually ionized, allowing us to have more control over the plasma.
So that covers the risk of mass disaster. But what about personal injury?
For the record,
Be quiet and let her talk.
Farmer Mayor!
The employees that work at our Plasma Arc Gasification Center are, of course, highly trained, but there is still room for error. Whenever employees enter the main gasification room, they wear special gear made of polybenzimidazole, generally shortened to PVI, a flame-protective material that often used in gear firefighters wear.
Also, employees only enter the main gasification area when absolutely necessary, which isn't very often.
Once they return from the main gasification area, we take very good care to make sure that the person who took care of the error is normal body temperature, hydrated, and healthy.
Otherwise, most errors can be taken care of remotely.
Is there anything else? All this engineering talk is making me busy.
Well, this is an engineering class, but today is the anniversary of the fire, so I guess we can make exception, just this once.
Good, so what's the discussion? discussion?
Well, we are in a college, so let's talk about the buildings that were saved. There were museums, restaurants, churches, plazas, universities, even some houses that were saved by the fire, but saved by the citizens. Without the brave people who risked their lives for the beauty of Florence, we wouldn't be in this university right now.
The date was Friday, January 23rd, 2027. Police were busy in their stations trying to track down arsonists and figure out where they would strike next. People began calling 911. Fire was catching, buildings were burning. It spread quickly, and the streets became filled with fleeing people. Then the Florence Cathedral caught fire. Accounts say someone screamed out, "We have to save it!" And so many people rushed to save the old building, including the school you're sitting in today.
After the fire, the city council swore to make Florence better than it was before.
They named the new city Urbon which means City of Fire.
And Urbon reopened universities, began doing research, and contributed to the world.
You see, City of Fire isn't simply because Urbon predecessor was lost to flame.
Urbon flourishes on flame. The plasma we use repurposes as trash, doesn't harm the environment, and has led to many scientific improvements.
Without the terrible tragedy that was the fire, we wouldn't have done any of that. In short, destruction doesn't always equal doom.
Sometimes disaster brings out the best in people.
And that's a wrap. It looks like it's about time to end your class.
It is. Well, class dismissed. See you all tomorrow.
Thank you for the great presentation.